As you just heard, and if you've been watching the past few days, you know there's plenty of anger, name-calling, and even threats to members of Congress in the wake of the big health care vote. So how do we get past this unhealthy debate? Senator John McCAIN built his reputation as a consensus builder. He's here to go one-on-one. Welcome.
Thank you, John, and thanks for having me on your show. And
welcome. You're welcome here. I want to read you something. These are your words from very early in the 2008 presidential campaign. I'm going to raise the level of political dialogue in America. As we try to get back, I assume you want to get back to a better place, a more civil debate. I want to give you a couple of examples that people say, some people say, are helping to stoke this environment. And one is a map put up on her website by your running mate, Sarah Palin. I know you're familiar with it. If you look over your shoulder here, you can see it. She says it's time to take a stand. She said in a tweet, don't retreat, instead reload. And you see those crosshairs. Those are congressional districts where she thinks Democrats are vulnerable. She could have used stars, Senator. She could have used arrows. She could have used points. Crosshairs are something you have in the scope of a gun. Is that beyond?
No, John, the rhetoric that we use in everyday language about political campaigns, battleground states, it's going to be a war, all of those things we have used for years and years. They are in the crosshairs. I've heard you use that language. I've heard every commentator use that language. The fact is, this is a very emotional issue, and people are very emotional.
At a time when they're so emotional, should everybody, should political leaders and people in my business maybe have a higher burden to step it back a little bit when you know the emotions are so raw?
We should try to step it back. But when we're passing legislation that is full of sleazy, sausage-making deals that are special deals for special interests, whether it be the Cornhusker kickback or the behind-the-scenes deal with pharma, of course they're going to be angry. I'm angry. Now the question is, do you turn that anger into voter registration and demonstrations and elections and ballot booths? That's what you've got to urge people to do. But I don't begrudge people their anger. We're talking about a passage of legislation which is going to lay another $1 trillion of debt on our kids and our grandkids. Of course they're angry and frustrated.
How do you throw the circuit breaker? Should a bipartisan group of people come out and say, look, we can fight about these things and we will fight about these things, but everybody needs to step back, or you just have to let it run its course?
Well, I think that would be very helpful. I say all the time, and so do a lot of my colleagues, say, look, we are a nation that loves to have debates. My favorite person I debated with, and we would go nose to nose, was Ted Kennedy. But we believed a fight not joined was a fight not enjoyed.
Okay.
But that's got to be carried on with respect, and obviously you don't want things like, well, like in my campaign, when Congressman John Lewis compared my campaign to the bombing of a church in Birmingham where 3 young children were killed. Now, that happened during my campaign, and he alleged that of me. He's never apologized for it. I think that's kind of inflammatory.
Let me show you something that others would find. If you want to raise that example, I want to show you one. Congressman Steve King, a Republican from Iowa, if you look over your shoulder this way, this is him on the deck, wiping, some say slapping a picture of the House Speaker, Nancy Pelosi. Is that appropriate conduct?
Of course that's uncalled for. Of course that's uncalled for, John. And we see from, you know, the person that yelled baby killer, but I think that we've got to urge everybody to be respectful. That's all we do. I have town hall meetings all the time, and the only thing I ask people to do is be respectful, and I've had thousands of them. And so we ought to urge everybody to be respectful of one another.
How about showing an example? Your friend Lindsey Graham has said because of the poisonous health care debate, as he calls it, he doesn't see any possibility for, say, bipartisan cooperation on immigration reform. Right now there's a partisan divide over financial reform in the Senate. Is there something out there where people could say, look, we disagree on a lot of things, we might even have some policy debates here, but look at us on this one, we're actually getting together? Is there one on the horizon?
Afghanistan, I think, is a perfect example.
Not immigration or financial reform, though.
Well, the problem is, in all due respect to bipartisanship, there's been none. They've taken their 60 votes, and when they had 60, and their majority in the House, and they've rammed stuff through. The stimulus package, the budget, the omnibus spending bill, and so any semblance of bipartisanship was not used by the majority. I understand that, but that's not change in Washington. In fact, it's changed for the worse.
Another example coming up would be another extension of unemployment benefits, and your Republican colleague Tom Coburn says, look, I'll vote for this, but only if we offset the deficit spending. We got to find it somewhere else. And he says if you don't give him that offset, then he'll put a hold on this. He'll use his power to slow this debate down, if not stop this debate. Would you side with him in that, or is this an issue on which you should not use those tactics, those levers at your disposal?
In the last year, we have increased the deficit by a couple of $1 trillion. This year, we're going to have $1.4 trillion deficit. Next year, $1.5 trillion deficit. The people want us to stop the spending, and they want us to pay for things. The anger out there is at a lot of things, but one of them is the generational theft we're continuing. Of course, why can't we find some way to pay?
But on the unemployment, is that you would support Senator Coburn, or do you think it's the wrong on that particular issue because of the pain in America? It's the wrong thing.
Doing exactly the right thing to find ways to pay for it. We've increased domestic spending by some 20% over the last year, while every state in America has had to tighten their belts and take draconian measures. So can't we find a way to pay for these things? That's all that Senator Coburn is asking.
Let me ask you in closing. You're going to head home tomorrow. You're going to be out campaigning with Sarah Palin. She's coming to Arizona to help you. You face a primary challenge. She's going to help you in your state. Any talk while you're out there campaigning? Maybe you'll turn aside so you can get a role in her new reality TV show?
I'd love it. I understand that she's being well compensated, almost as well as you are for this new show.
Thanks. She might be getting a little bit more than me.
Could I just go back to this? Yeah, there's a lot of anger and passion out there. Let's translate that into a spirited, healthy, respectful campaign season between Republicans and Democrats, liberals and conservatives, and that's a message we want to give everybody, and that's a message I want to give too. Let's really go at it, but let's do it with respect. That's the key to it. And obviously, you and I have seen examples where that's not the case, and sometimes it has a bad influence on citizens who become too passionate. And I decry it, and I know you do, and all of us do.
Appreciate your coming in, Senator. We'll come out and see you on the road, on the trail in Arizona.
Thank you.